Today, the media pounces on Trump's Tulsa rally, and Brett Favre gives Colin Kaepernick hero status. We've got a lot to get into on this Monday, and it starts right now. Welcome to the news and why it matters. I am Sarah Gonzalez. Today, the POC at the table with other POCs at the table. It is a POC-centered show. I've got Eric July, BlazeTV contributor Eric July in the house, and Aaron Colin from theblaze.com. Theblaze.com.
Please don't use racial slurs.
No, that's supposed to be the name we all like now.
Is
POC.
it? Oh, okay, I have to keep
That's the only. Yeah.
Yeah, that's true.
Oh, I was told too. Isn't African American is not in. It's,
I don't
you
know.
just
Is
have
it
to
out?
say
I can't keep up.
I thought I was
keep up,
black,
right?
but whatever.
I can't keep up with it all, trying to be politically correct. All right, we've got a lot to get into. So let's start with President Trump's rally this weekend in Tulsa. I attended, I was there as media, so I saw the whole thing. I spent way too much time on my feet at that arena that day, watched the whole crowd trickle in, saw what the demeanor of the people who were like inside and the people who were like outside. So I can give my perspective on what really went on in Tulsa as well. But interestingly, a couple different things. Number one, the arena not as full as the Trump campaign was expecting, obviously, are the headlines. Those are the spin, especially coming from, CNN, the mainstream media. Why not pounce on the fact that President Trump couldn't even fill the Box Center in Tulsa, Oklahoma? What does that say for his campaign? There are a lot of stories as to possibly why that happened that we can get into. But here's just a little clip of President Trump over the weekend at his first rally since the coronavirus struck. Watch.
Joe Biden and the Democrats want to prosecute Americans for going to church, but not for burning a church. They believe you can riot, vandalize, and destroy, but you cannot attend a peaceful pro-America rally. They want to punish your thought, but not their violent crimes. They want to abolish bail, abolish and open up your borders. They want open borders, let everyone, and by the way, we're doing so well. We have a record this month on the borders. Nobody's coming in. Very few people.
So there is President Trump speaking to, I think, really the heart of his base. It's certainly something that his base wants to hear, how crazy the Democrats have gone, how radical they are, and just to highlight the stark contrast of what they are willing to criticize when it comes to the right, but unable to criticize when it comes to themselves. We can get into, Eric, the reporting on the low numbers, the low turnout. But what are your thoughts on, again, I was there. The energy was high. Yes, the top sections were not totally full, but the people who were there at the bottoms, I mean, they were there. They were present. They were in that moment. They were fired up. They were pro-American. They were ready to be there. But what are your thoughts on not filling the stadium in Tulsa?
Yeah, I mean, I'm not going to pretend like I have the answers as to why that was the case. We can sit here and speculate all day long. I do think that there could be potentially a significant amount of people that support him that have given in to the fears of this virus and everything as well.
Yep.
I say that from experience because there's been a lot of Trump supporters knocking me for my positions on that. So again, that's just speculation. I'm not going to pretend like I know exactly why. Like you said, you were there. And you're going to have more insight on that than I do. From the videos, at least from what I watched, it seems like the people that were there were at least very enthusiastic about them being there. Now, why they didn't fill it out or what they were anticipating, it could be a multitude of different reasons. Now, I understand that people would be, certainly if you were a supporter of Trump and you look at that as a bad thing, I can understand if you're like, well, is he losing support? Are there other individuals that maybe would have supported him that aren't there because now they're kind of on the fence with him? I don't know. Could that potentially be the case? Absolutely. But I don't want to sit up here and pretend like there isn't this whole deal that a lot of folks have given into when it comes to this virus and getting together in large groups and so forth. Obviously, the people that were there didn't care for that, but that doesn't mean there aren't people that did. So that can be said about a multitude of different things, that there are less people there, period. Like, it doesn't matter what it is that you're doing. There's less people at restaurants, less people at this, less people at that, because of all of what's going on. Some people are just genuinely scared. Some people want to play it safe. So I don't know exactly why. I mean, it's just something worth talking about, absolutely. But at least you can say, at the bare minimum, for the sake of his base, they were at least enthusiastic. Now, I would like to see the Joe Biden alternative to that, because that's really all that matters in this context, right? Because that's who his main adversary is. So if he couldn't fill it out, are we saying Biden can?
You know, it's funny that you say that, because of course, it didn't take long for the media spin to take place. And, President Trump can't even get, a bunch of supporters to come support him in this place, even though we've spent weeks and weeks and weeks telling you that you're going to literally die if you attend one of these. I'm looking at Joe Biden's live streams, and I'm like, dude can't even get over 500. He can't even get over 500 people viewing a live stream at a time, when they can watch it from the comfort of their own homes and submit questions or comment, during the thing. What am I missing here?
It becomes a question of risk. This may be one of the first indoor mass gatherings that people have the opportunity to go to. There's a lot of people who are going to look at that and be like, is it even worth the risk of me showing up to this thing, potentially getting this virus and bringing it back home to my family? Even if you're not panicked about it in terms of, I think I'm going to die, you just ask yourself, is this experience worth the risk? And so that can easily take you from 20,000 people in the stadium down to 6,000, because they don't want to be the test case of we'll be the first people to pack into a stadium and see how that works out for us. I don't think you can use it to make a referendum on his campaign or the enthusiasm. These times are so different. I would imagine that if there was no coronavirus, Trump could sell out any arena in the nation. I don't have any reason to believe otherwise, because we've seen it so many times. I think it's just a matter of the coronavirus, and I think that's all that it really is.
And I will say to both of your points, gentlemen, again, this is just personal anecdote for whatever it's worth. I did not see a very large representation of very elderly people, right? I mean, I saw middle-aged people, I saw young people, I saw in between, but I didn't personally.
And isn't it correct that that's a pretty significant part of his base?
Yes.
A lot of people that would have been there that really just can't afford to take that risk.
Right, exactly. So I wouldn't be surprised if that factored into it. But I want to get your thoughts on also some of the differences, just the stark differences that I saw in the demeanor of the people who were present at both the rally and at the protests. The Black Lives Matter group had a march going downtown. They were marching in the streets. The police were very good to, block off portions, keep everyone safe. I know that they worked really hard on that, and, we appreciated it. Those of us who were there appreciated it. But what I saw in the rally goers, a lot of people, like I said earlier, happy to be there, just joyous, having fun, happy, friendly. I had some protesters. I had the march pass me on the street, and they were, literally you could see, when people get really angry and you see the veins in their temple and they're throbbing. All of them, they're so angry, shouting obscenities, holding up their I'll do this one, guys. You're welcome, edit. Holding up their middle fingers, if I was holding up my middle finger, in the air to, everyone around, go home racist, F Donald Trump, F this, F that, F you, just so angry. And the funny part is, they were almost exclusively white people.
Seems like that's what happens, and we have unfortunately had this conversation where people make it seem as if it's black v. white in the context of Trump support versus non-Trump support. It's very dishonest. It's not even remotely the truth when you can see so much footage and so forth. Definitely when you see people that are generally, protesting. Not saying there aren't black people that are protesting. Absolutely, there are.
Right.
But for whatever reason, people act as if they aren't white folks that are causing havoc, shouting, like you said, obscenities, being crazy, being disrespectful towards their political adversaries. That's absolutely what happened. We've seen this happen. But for whatever reason, even the thing that's going on in Seattle, I don't know if aside from that Raz cat, I don't know if I've ever seen any other black people that are even present there as they have these sort of sectioned off, sort of segregated areas and so forth. I think it goes back to the whole idea that I've talked about on this show, where a lot of self-righteous white folks have put it upon themselves, that superiority, it's self-righteous is what it is, where they feel like as if they have the power. And people, specifically the POCs like us at the table, right? Our world can't move unless they move it for us. So they have to get out there and go protest and be loony and so forth. And I've even seen videos, of course, of black Trump supporters going at white Trump non-Trump supporters, and of course the white one is always lecturing them about why they shouldn't be supporting, because again they have this it's like literal racism, because again they feel as if they are superior in that regards, and it's self-righteous. They just think they're using their superiority for good, and of course the Trump supporters are using their superiority for bad. Is all it is. Still race literal textbook racism nonetheless. So it's an interesting thing that sort of we've had this conversation about, try to paint it as black v white when it comes to this, but there's a whole host of white folk on that side, and they're loony.
And when it comes to Trump Trump and the protesters against him, the protesters, he brings out sort of like a venom and like an animosity that makes them sacrifice any moral high ground they might have thought they had, because there's people that are just gathering for their politician of choice, not hurting anybody. 6,000 people go into stadium to cheer their president on. Fine.
There was cheering, there was laughing, there was I wasn't angry.
And so whatever you think about that, if you hate Donald Trump, what does it take for you to go out to that event and curse people out and scream at them and harass them? That says something about you and what's inside of you. And there's a corruption and sort of just an evil inside of that makes you, why can't you just leave people alone and let them go celebrate what they want, and you go advocate for your cause? But for you to have to go and invade somebody else's thing to act like that sacrifices any kind of moral high ground you might think that you have against Trump, whatever you think about him.
Yeah, amen. I want to get into how AOC is connected to this whole debacle. Of course. I mean, she has to insert herself somewhere. So there was a rumor that surfaced after the low turnout that there was a group of K-pop fans. Which, for those of you who don't know who K-pop is, well, first of all, you're lucky. Consider yourself lucky that you don't know who K-pop is. But it's this like Korean pop music group.
You're informing me right now.
This is breaking news for Aaron right now. But apparently them and some others used the social media app TikTok to create this campaign to sabotage the rally for President Trump. They allegedly all went on and tried to get all the tickets to make President Trump think that there was going to be a higher turnout. I don't know. It all just seems so juvenile. So, of course, AOC, Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, is involved somehow because it's so juvenile. She tweeted out to Brad Parscale, the campaign manager for Donald Trump. He had said radical protesters fueled by a week of apocalyptic media coverage interfered with Donald Trump supporters at the rally. They blocked access to metal detectors, preventing people from entering. By the way, that is all true. I saw it happen. We had to take the detour. I saw the protesters that they had to set up the fences for. All of what Brad Parscale said was absolutely true. I saw it with my own eyes. AOC said, actually, you just got rocked by teens on TikTok who flooded the Trump campaign with fake ticket reservations and tricked you into believing 1 million people wanted your white supremacist open mic enough to pack an arena during COVID. Shout out to Zoomers. Y'all make me so proud. It's almost, Eric, as if she is condoning, encouraging interference from a foreigner.
I didn't even think about that.
TikTok is Chinese owned.
Oh man, I didn't even think about.
She's encouraging interference in the election.
That didn't even cross my mind, but you're completely correct. A lot of what they've accused, basically, the other side when it comes to like the sort of infiltration of outsiders. You know what I mean? Non-Americans. When it comes to influencing the election in some capacity, that's what she basically admitted to.
Yeah.
It's not even. I won't even go as far as to say that she implied it. I think she just flat out admitted that was what she did. But That's what I expect out of AOC. Unfortunately, I see her as representation of like my entire like age demographic and younger. I think she might not even be a year older than me. I think we're about basically the same age, 30, and that's how I envision folks from a political standpoint. Childish, they don't know what the hell they're talking about, and they're more interested in sort of using sort of social media for clout, retweets, likes, hee-hees and ha-has. That's more so what it is. It's very childish. Unfortunately, though, that's their approach. And this is why I said, I believe like months ago, I said on this show that I feel like people should pay attention to her, not as far as like take her seriously, because I think she's a bonehead in a lot of cases. But she is representation of a lot of I don't want to say maybe a voting block, but more so a block of, unfortunately, adults that maybe are voting age.
They listen to her.
They do listen to her. She has a pull in that regards. And this is why I'd say it was a mistake for people to be like, yeah, she's just this loony. She's in a loony bin. Just leave her alone. Don't ignore her.
Right.
I think that was a mistake. I think people should have been paying attention to her because this is sort of the culture that she's been driving for a long time, regardless of how silly that we may think she is, regardless if we think she's stupid in a lot of cases as far as what she says. That doesn't matter. I've said I don't know how many times that when it comes to these types of people that get to their positions by way of generally emotion, you can't reason them out of their position, and you can't try to use reason to try to make sense of what it is that they do because they didn't use reason to get to their positions. You know what I mean? That's just how they are. And unfortunately, there's a lot of people just in general that approach politics certainly that way and social political elements that way. So we had better been paying attention to her, no matter what side of the political spectrum you are, because nonetheless, she's very influential. And unfortunately, these people get to vote. And that's the problem with democracy. That's maybe for another show.
Yeah, it may be for another show.
When it comes to the rally, the Trump campaign is a victim of the expectations that were set beforehand. It was like 1 million people requested, and there's going to be just people flowing outside. If it had just been reasonable expectations and 6,000 people showed up to something after all this coronavirus stuff, that's just fine. But because the expectations were so big, now they get to say, oh, look, your campaign is struggling or whatever. But it is interesting. How would AOC feel about that if a Biden live stream got sabotaged in some kind of way by a social media campaign on Facebook by conservative people or just by conservative people? It would be like right-wing extremism or cyber terrorism or something like that. And so for her to do that, it's just clear hypocrisy and a lack of self-awareness of the fact that if this was she was on the other foot, she wouldn't be celebrating it as something like that's very clever that a group of people did.
Right. Well, and also, the encouraging young children, teenagers, to participate in dishonest things.
Good job lying, guys.
Right. I mean, but that's just what we should come to expect from the left, who is, that's what they want. Yep. They want kids to lie to their parents, to go get abortions behind their backs and be able to, sign off on their own medical procedures. That's what they want.
Like, this is it's just a childish prank. That's all this was. And that's what they're encouraging.
Exactly.
She's grown, man. That's what sucks.
Yeah, well, she's grown in age, but not in the mind.
That's true.
Not in the mind.
That's a good point. That's a good point.
All right, we've got a lot more coming up, including how they're doing over there in CHOP territory, which Eric alluded to earlier in the program. First, we want to thank our sponsor, Home Title Lock. So there is a very quickly growing crime, according to the FBI, you may not know about. It is called home title theft. And by the way, a lot of us are working from home right now. And we're thinking if we're either here in our homes so we can protect it, or when we leave, we might go to the grocery store with our masks on. Well, not me, I'm not wearing a mask. But we might go to the grocery store, but we can set our alarm and your home will be totally protected. Well, what you don't know, or what you might not know, is cyber criminals are actually targeting your homes right now. They want the money that they can get by taking out loans against your home, because turns out that all of the home titles are stored online where these cyber criminals can go and access them. They forge your signature on that title, and then they have access to all of the equity that you have put into your home, which is probably most likely is part of your retirement nest egg that you're saving. Yeah, they can just take it right out from under you. Are you scared yet? You should be. Banks do not protect you. Insurance does not protect you. Identity theft programs do not protect you, but Home Title Lock does. They will put a virtual barrier around your home's title. You got to protect your home. You will not know if you're already a victim unless you go to HometitleLock.com, put in your address, register your address to see if you have already been a victim of this scam. Again, you don't want to find out you don't want to find out until it's too late. You want to find out before it's too late. You can only do that by going to HometitleLock.com. If you use promo code Y, that's WHY, you'll get 30 free days of protection to help you through the crisis. And you're going to need it, guys. All right, HometitleLock.com, promo code Y. So it turns out the CHOP, for those of you who don't know, it is the Capitol Hill organized protest. Now, it is not, nope, we don't want to be the autonomous zone anymore. We were told what that meant. And what that meant is that we have to actually be independent and on our own. We do not want any part of that. We still want to mooch off the system. So please rename us CHOP. CHOP in Seattle. There was some violence going on there. I know you guys are surprised. Just
yes,
get your jaw up off the floor. I know you weren't expecting
Wait, that's a peaceful
any violence.
protest. Are you sure this is accurate?
That is what we're told, is that it's very peaceful. Turns out it is not very peaceful in CHOP. Early Saturday morning over the weekend, there were two men who were shot in this zone, in this organized protest zone. One man actually later died from his gunshot injuries. And just to clarify, there were two men who were shot that morning, but it's not that large of an area. Right,
6 blocks.
6 blocks. I think they may have expanded a couple blocks, but 6 to 9 blocks that we're talking about here. 2 people shot, 1 person died, and there is a controversy surrounding it because Seattle's EMT allegedly would not enter this zone following the shooting. Here is a little clip of one of the leaders. I liked it better when it was called Chaz because you could rhyme it with Raz, which you would think isn't he a rapper?
Yeah, he is.
You would think that he would appreciate.
It's a really missed opportunity.
I know. So here is Raz, one of the leaders in the CHOP zone, yelling at EMT workers for not going into this autonomous zone. Watch.
You could be saving his life. Sir, please explain to me what's going on. He's dying. He needs your help. This is your job. Is this in your heart to do this?
I want to make sure that we have not been cleared to move into this.
You are clear. We're giving you the clear. We will make sure you're clear.
That's negative, 44. We're still working.
We will make sure you're clear.
Okay, we have a number of citizens.
This is in your hearts. If he dies, it's on you guys. You could have saved his life. You could have. You guys could have. This is and you know it, sir. What if that was your son up there right now? Would you want this to happen to your son?
We are still at...
oh man, this is amazing. This is what's happening in America right now. They're waiting to save this man's life.
You know what?
They're waiting to save this man's life. He's dying, bleeding out. If this was your son, you would bust through that crowd right now. But you're not, because it's a black life.
He probably didn't even know that. He probably didn't even know it was a black life. Like the EMT probably has no idea.
No.
That it's so stupid, but we know why it happened. Generally, protocol. Make sure the area is clear, and that's what they
Which
use
is
the
what
police.
they said.
Which is what the police generally do.
Yeah. The fire department said they were waiting for the police.
You guys have made it very clear on your property lines.
Mm-hmm.
Property lines. If communists believe in that now, but their property lines say that no cops are allowed.
Mm-hmm.
Now, I think again this speaks to a larger issue, and that is that they expect and depend upon this system for things like that.
Yeah.
Now, that's partially why they changed the name, because they wanted to benefit off of things like that. It's not like a generally or autonomous or anything like that. So for them, though, to act like it's black and white, as in like, okay, well, these guys just didn't want to come in there just to not come in there, and like they're just supposed to take your word for it, considering the whole reason why this was built. Why would they take your word for it that everything is clear? He's like, well, make sure you're clear. So what?
Right.
You know what I mean? Like, what am I supposed to believe that, considering what is taking place in this general area? So it's not as black and white as, okay, they just refused to go in there because he was a black man. Again, they probably didn't even know the race of the person that was shot.
To be fair, I don't see very many black people.
Yeah, that's
in
what I'm
this
saying.
zone. It's
Exactly.
mostly white people
Exactly.
that I
Seattle
see.
for you.
Yeah,
True
exactly.
that, true that,
so
true
I
that.
mean, they probably just assumed that if they were going to assume anything,
Yeah.
it would be that the person was white.
It's such a bizarre thing that was what they were claiming. But remember, it's all about narratives. It's not about what exactly is true. But it's not a black and white thing. That's generally their protocol. And most people would, maybe not me, but most people would generally agree that that's a good approach for them to do. Like, you don't want to send people, obviously, that are unarmed into just danger like that. And most people would generally agree, regardless of how I feel about privatizing all of this, that's irrelevant. Most people would generally agree that should have been the approach. But if you are going to be actually autonomous, this is the problem with communism, this is the problem with people that don't understand the actual, like, this was a legitimate secession movement. Let's just assume that was what it was. You'd think that people within that geographical area would have been working on that. Not randos in Power Ranger suits acting as if they're going to protect the area, but that's a market need. But this goes to show that they don't really understand that whole entire concept or anything. This is why I get so triggered when people say, "Oh, they're anarchists," and then there are a lot of people looking at me. I'm like, that's not me. Like, those are not the people those are communists. Those are not people that understand markets. Hell, they always think markets are a bad thing generally when it comes to stuff like this. Because if it was legitimate, that would have been the first thing that they would have established, and they would have been talking about, okay, the tax dollars that are going to X and O, the cops or so and so, let us keep that so we can form our own. That would have been stuff that they were generally taking care of. But that's not what they want, which is why I always said that the whole defund the police thing was a fraud. It was a money laundering thing in which they still wanted to keep that money. They still wanted to benefit off of all of that state impose sort of policies and yeah, they may have monopolized these services, but that's just what it is. They still wanted to benefit off of those, maybe make the police a little woker, but that's generally what they wanted to do. So they never had it's not only to say they didn't have the opportunity, they had a clear opportunity, they just missed it because what they wanted to do was just it was like fraud. This is what it was. It's like, hey, all cops are bastards. We don't want you in here. Okay, hold on, wait, where are you guys when we need you?
Right.
You can't have it both ways, man. Like, extend it to the logical conclusion and go all the way. But when it backfires on you, you don't get to just say, oh, well, wait a minute, you guys are supposed to help us. And that's not how it works.
Yeah, they didn't seem to plan for the idea that if you put together some kind of community and throw a bunch of people in there, some of them are going to be criminals, some of them are going to fight each other, shoot each other, steal from each other. They acted like they had just created some utopia where we can kick the police out and
It's a
then
perfect
we
example.
actually don't need any law enforcement. So they didn't bother to organize and plan for how are we going to enforce rules or ways of behaving with each other. It's just a gathering. It's not really an organization of any kind. And so that's their biggest flaw, is that they're not organizing to be some sort of autonomous zone. They're just people gathering, hoping that something will happen if they hold out long enough. Maybe the mayor will do something, which she might, the way she's talking. I don't know. She might give
like
them.
It's not even a thing.
She might give them something that they want if they hold out long enough. I don't know, but they don't have clear direction. They don't have clear leaders. This Raz person that we hear about, I don't know. He may be some kind of leader, but what is he doing? What is he organizing? What is he mobilizing? It doesn't seem to be going anywhere. And so I don't really know what the end point of this is, but there's going to be more of this because these are just the same people in this little zone that commit crimes outside of the zone. It's just the same people, so we're going to see the same problems.
True.
They just now don't have the tools to solve them.
Oh, yeah, and also they're not living in their mom's basement anymore.
It's true. They're living on the sidewalk.
Yeah, they're living in shop in tents, planting their garden on top of cardboard boxes.
Arguably not an upgrade.
Yeah, great job, guys. We've got a lot more to get into. First, we want to thank our sponsor this segment, Rough Greens. So if you're like my family, your dog is part of your family, which means love, affection, but a lot more than that. It means responsibility. It means taking care of your dog, taking responsibility for your dog's well-being, for your dog's health. All right, I know you feel the same way about it because we live in America where we spoil our animals to a ridiculous degree. Well, don't forget that one of the things that your dog needs to thrive is nutrients, vitamins, minerals, antioxidants, probiotics, omega oils. just all of these nutrients that they're not getting from dry dog food because they have to kill all that good stuff in dry dog food to give it the long shelf life that it has. Now, I know we've been talking about rough greens for a while, but just to refresh your memory, it's not the dog food. It's a supplement that you put on the dog's food, and it puts all of those nutrients back into their diet. It will promote a happy and healthier lifestyle. Your dog will love it, by the way. Mine was a very picky eater. She loves the rough greens. You can take the rough greens 14-day jumpstart challenge today for $14.95. You will see the difference in your dog in 14 days or less. If you want to see your dog thrive, maybe you've got an older dog, you want to see them improve their mobility and their joint health, all you have to do is go to roughgreens.com/blaze. That is RUFF. Yes, I know, it's very cute. RUFFgreens.com/blaze. Back in a minute. President Trump has publicly contradicted Anthony Fauci, his own coronavirus task force expert, over the issue of whether the NFL, whether professional football should be played despite the coronavirus risks. He came out and tweeted, "Tony Fauci has nothing to do with NFL football. They're planning a very safe and controlled opening. However, if they don't stand for our national anthem and our great American flag, I won't be watching." And you know he means it because he put 3 exclamation points after his sentence. All right? Don't mess with him. You know, it's interesting because we see all of these experts who are coming out and saying, you know, well, you got to be really careful with sports. Obviously, there's very close contact. And we all know that coronavirus is super deadly. Oh, wait, it's not really super deadly to the general population. We're talking about healthy athletes here. Right. But I think money talks, and, you know, the NFL, all of these sports organizations see, they see the risks, but they also see the risk of losing the amount of money that they're going to lose. And so far, we have seen them really, really try to put a season together despite the coronavirus risks. Eric, I'm going to go out on a limb and guess that you see no issue with that.
No, like if they want to do that, that's absolutely what they should be able to do. Any sport. I know everybody's trying to figure out how they're going to do this. How they're going to do it, I really don't know. I think some of it's silly because they're acting as if nobody's ever going to get it. And I think they should be operating on the expectation that that's exactly what's going to happen. Yeah. Not that nobody's going to get it. Like, no, that's going to happen. And
which is what they told us at the beginning. They said most likely most people will get this virus.
Right, that's what it is. And that should definitely, when you're dealing with those types of people, those are athletes. They're generally healthy, probably the healthiest of the healthy. Yeah. So they're generally going to be fine, pretty much all of them. We know that a couple of people, we knew the basketball players that ended up having it, they're perfectly fine. I believe Ezekiel Elliott from out here got it. From what I know, he is A-OK.
And he was mad, by the way, however that leaked. Right, I think it was his own agent.
Yeah, it probably was.
And he was like, what about HIPAA? I'm like, I don't think that applies to your own agent spilling your business.
Right. But no, so it doesn't matter what these experts seem to think. Like you said, it's not a deadly virus. I know that makes a lot of people upset because facts for whatever make people upset. Mm-hmm. It is generally the population that gets it. Most people, they're going to be just fine. Yeah. And these are the healthiest of the healthy. And if that's a risk that they want to assume, like you said, money talks, and they're losing money if they do not have this season. Every single sport is losing money if they do not have this season. But you're looking at those people, and this is how I look at it. You're looking at that population, would it be with the age demographic, and so forth. Generally, maybe not as much with the coaches, but generally with the people that are playing, the actual athletes. That's the population of people that have like a near 100% chance of surviving this.
Right.
If there's anybody that's going to be able to handle it, it's going to be them. So I don't even, again, it goes back to the one size fits all. Why are we trying to apply it as if everybody's impacted by this virus the same way when we know that's not how it works? I think that this should obviously happen in whatever capacity that they want it to happen. It doesn't matter what these experts say because we already know, regardless, that it's not a very deadly virus specifically for those players.
Yeah, and Tony Fauci doesn't tell the NFL what to do. Neither does the president, really. I mean, they can decide, whatever plan they want to do, and they're going to go forward in a way that they think is safe. The risk, I think, from a sports league perspective is the fact that if one person gets really sick or if one person, God forbid, dies from the coronavirus, out of all of the people, it's going to be such a massive scandal. and a massive thing that could be damaging to the leagues. And so that's why they're operating with that level of caution, even though the numbers show that healthy people of that age are not at risk of getting seriously ill. But they have to consider the fans and the coaches, and they have to consider, again, if one person out of the thousands of athletes across the pro sports gets seriously ill, it's going to be like CNN, MSNBC blowing this thing out like the plague is taking over the nation. And from a public relations standpoint, these leagues are always very careful about PR and about images and appearances. And I think that's what's holding things up more than anything. But we see the NBA is going forward with a plan to kind of keep people contained and do it. And if they can do it inside with a sport that's that close contact, then football, baseball, I don't see any reason why those other sports can't go forward as well.
Doesn't that, but the fact that they have to be so concerned with the public perception of a player contracting coronavirus and, possibly potentially dying, don't you think that highlights what is wrong with the public perception of this right now? That it's it's not the league's fault, right? I mean, everyone has personal responsibility over themselves. These people could choose to retire if they, if they want to. They could sit the season out if they were worried about it. If they want to play, let him play.
But you see how it's again, it goes to media reporting. You see that we see the reporting is all focused on increased cases in order to stir up more fear, and not focusing on the fact that as the cases are going up, the deaths are staying flat or going down, the hospitalizations are fine. And so it's reported in a way to continue to push fear for whatever reason that is, whether it's political or whatever the case may be. And so because of that, because it's a sport that relies on fans and viewers and things like that, they have to have public support in order to go forward. So they have to kind of be a little bit enslaved to the media narratives that are going around.
Yeah, which, by the way, we got to take a break. But by the way, for those of you who heard the media spin one of President Trump's quotes out of context from the rally, Aaron, you reminded me of it about the positive cases. The media wants to just bring up all of this increase in cases without giving you any other context. Speaking of context, when he made the comment about not testing, he told his people to stop testing Americans for coronavirus. It was a joke. You got to go back and watch the whole video and his entire sentence that he gave. He was joking. It was a joke because he was making the point that I think, Aaron, was kind of your indirect point, which was whenever you start testing more people, you are going to have more positive cases. And then the media is going to turn it around and spin it and make it sound like we're all dying because you have more positive cases because of the testing. Glad I could clear that up. We'll be right back. Oh, I watched that being spun. I was just like... Retired NFL quarterback Brett Favre recently talked about, he was being interviewed just about the state of affairs, right? Because you can't ask a former football player about anything without getting into everything political that's going on in the world right now, which is just so frustrating. But he was asked about Black Lives Matter movement. He gave this very in-depth interview on current political issues. And Colin Kaepernick happened to come up. He actually ended up comparing Colin Kaepernick to Pat Tillman, saying that Colin Kaepernick would have hero status when it all shakes out. Here is a little bit of that interview.
Boy, I suppose that he's helped this cause tremendously, and is deserving of much praise and respect, because it's not easy for a guy his age, black or white, Hispanic, whatever, to stop something that you've always dreamed of doing and put it on hold, maybe forever. For something that you believe in. I can only think of, right off the top of my head, Pat Tillman's another guy who did something, similar.
And he, of course, it didn't show this in the clip, but they actually asked him, and he specifically said that he thought that he would have hero status similar to Pat Tillman. It's interesting, though, Eric, because I didn't realize that that's actually how it shook out, was that Colin Kaepernick stopped playing football. He benched himself.
That's not even close to the truth.
Oh, is it not?
No, it's not even close to the truth, believe it or not. No, if he was actually as good as what a lot of people pretend that he and maybe he did have a couple of good seasons under him, and then it kind of went downhill. Mm-hmm. When you are good, and we've seen this definitely in football. I mean, come on, I'm a fan of the Cowboys, and they're good for bringing in a bunch of people that probably shouldn't even still be in the league as far as they do some crazy things off field.
Maybe shouldn't even be on the streets.
Yeah, exactly, exactly. And Jerry Jones is good for giving them a second chance. He loves that. If he was as good as people thought, he would still be in the league, no question about it. And then when we consider what happened with the whole recent tryout thing and you know the whole we're going to move it over here and all of that craziness that went on, and he actually, for a lot of supporters of him, he got a lot of criticism for that, rightful criticism for that. But it has nothing to do with what I mean, maybe in a slight sense it has something to do with what he did, meaning that people maybe didn't want to put up with the media attraction. But if he's a good player, people don't care about that. There's a lot of characters in sports, right, that do a lot of weird things, and you kind of just got to put up with it. But because they put up stats, they put up the numbers, they get you wins and stuff like that. People did not feel that way about Colin Kaepernick, and they felt that the risk just wasn't worth it. That attention, that negative attention that may have come with it, it wasn't worth it because he just simply was not that good. Yeah. And so it goes both ways. But to act like this is something like, oh, I'm doing this for justice, I am no longer going to play football, is fake news. It's revisionist history. And considering how recent it is, I don't understand why Brett Favre would say that, because it's simply not true. That's not what happened. He didn't put it on hold or anything like that. It was just that, you know, he had his positions. A lot of people didn't like it. A lot of owners didn't like it, and he wasn't good enough for people to be like.
He was already benched.
Yeah, he was already benched before all of this happened, but he just simply wasn't good enough for them to be like, you know what? Yeah, we're going to get this negative attention, but he's going to be a
worth it.
He's worth it because he's going to get out there and get us wins. If they felt that way, he would have been a starting quarterback on anybody's team.
The first thing, this is the problem with sports media now with the coronavirus, is that when you turn on Fox Sports or ESPN or whatever, like it's all political. There's no sports to talk about, so they all just jump on the social justice issues. And these people are mostly not qualified to talk about them in any kind of way. They're not read up on these issues. They don't have historical context. They don't have any of the knowledge because they're sports experts. And so you tell these former athletes and coaches who have spent their whole life focused on games and sports to say, okay, now address the civil rights issues of our time. Yeah. You're going to get a lot of bad takes like that Colin Kaepernick is the same as Pat Tillman giving his life in the military.
Right.
Colin Kaepernick is doing okay. He left the league, but
he's reaping a lot of benefits off it.
He's getting appearance fees. He's got Nike contracts.
I would love to be oppressed like Colin Kaepernick has been oppressed.
I mean, he might have sacrificed. I don't know what the balance is of the money that he lost for NFL versus this, but he's top 1%. Like he's making probably 7 figures doing the things that he's doing, and he might like to play football. I think that's questionable given how the tryout went. But he's in no way did he make like a sacrifice of his life to where he's like, man, Colin, remember him? Like he's more famous now than he would have been if he had just been a mediocre quarterback for the next 5 to 10 years. Everybody knows Colin Kaepernick now. People who watch the Blaze, people who are not sports fans know Colin Kaepernick because of his political stance, and he never would have got that as a quarterback.
And it's important to mention that there are other people that kneel and are still in the league.
Yes.
Okay, so let's get that out there.
Still making millions of dollars. Still totally safe, not oppressed at all. All right, back in a minute. Did you get the feeling, though, listening to Brett Favre? Friday's poll, should Juneteenth be a national holiday? 43% of you said yes, 57% of you said no. I have no idea the rhyme or the reason behind the options. I have no idea the rhyme or the reason behind the asking of the actual question. So I'm going to move on to today's poll, which is who poses the biggest threat to the Americans' future? I think it just means to America's future. Big tech companies, Donald Trump, Antifa, or Joe Biden? That is actually a good question. Who poses the biggest threat to America's future? Big tech companies, Trump, Antifa, or Joe Biden? What do you think, Eric?
Man, that's tough.
It is tough.
I would say big tech in a way because they can control narratives.
Yes.
I know they can pretend like they're unbiased, but they're not. We know that. That's not to say they will, but they have the potential to basically slant everything one way and paint their opposition as negative people. So I would say big tech.
Yeah, what people see on these social media sites influences how they think and how they vote. So that's got to be the biggest threat.
I would also say big tech companies.
Joe Biden's asleep. He can't do nothing.
It's true. That's true. Because I actually, Eric, you'll be able to relate to this. I noticed I had a video pulled. because
There you go.
off of my Sarah Gonzalez Unfiltered, which, by the way, you should subscribe to, because I said something about the coronavirus.
Every time.
You can't say anything about the coronavirus on YouTube
Because you're putting life at risk.
unless it is straight up World Health Organization
Yep.
garbage.
Yep.
So. All right, thanks for tuning in. Thanks for being here, guys.